Arizona basketball gets the road trip that it needed in a variety of different ways. What does this mean going forward? And we're going to rehash all of that here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. This show is brought to you by LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. All right, now, Arizona basketball is now squarely back in contention for a number one seed. And that is quite frankly the way that it should be. I think a big thing about Arizona that I think has been frustrating for a lot of fans is why in the world aren't they playing better? Why? Because again, you've got a world of talent here. And one thing that we have seen in college basketball is that it's difficult to win on the road. We know that it's difficult to win on the road. We've seen that. That's why I think going into this road trip, everybody thought that, including yours truly, that Arizona would probably split. That it would, and honestly, you'd probably take that because, again, as we've seen, I mean, look at Kansas. Kansas was 1-3 on the road at one point, with a loss to Central Florida mixed in there. Not good. But I think the one thing about it that Arizona was able to really prove to a lot of people was that this team does have some real resiliency, has some moxie to it. Now, let's talk about the Utah win first. Now, the Utah game was impossibly frustrating to start off with because Arizona gets out to this really, really big lead, and you're like, all right, going to be able to cruise to a victory here, get ready for that Colorado game coming up, and so on and so forth, as the old saying goes. And that did not happen. Arizona went into the halftime up 16, I believe, and Utah came out and decided to make 7 out of 7 3-pointers. Now, again, one thing that we have been over is that Arizona does not defend the three well, but I can't totally beat up Arizona's defense for this one because this wasn't a terrible 3-point performance. Not only was it not a terrible 3-point performance, it was also something where I think a lot of people were like, all right, you contested a lot of those, but again, it is what it is at some point when teams just start going bananas against you, and it's generally against you. At some point, you're kind of the common denominator there, and that's kind of where Arizona is. But Utah came back, and it looked like Utah was going to win. Utah had all of the advantages. The crowd was going. They obviously need that game. You get a win over Arizona. That helps you out immeasurably when it comes to a seeding time. But Arizona said there will be none of that. And so Arizona goes into that first overtime, and you're like, all right. New game, new start, and that's also kind of when Caleb Love comes alive. I've never really seen anybody quite like Caleb Love. That he's a guy who certainly he can have some really off games, as we've seen, and when he has those really off games, it's tough. It's tough to look at. I mean, we've all seen it, but you've also seen games now where when he gets going. And it doesn't really matter what happened in the past. And I think that's something that is just such a refreshing take about him is that a lot of times, like with the Kylan Boswell, if Kylan Boswell's not shooting well, then it affects his confidence in a variety of different ways. I mean, we've seen it up close. We know. We will get to Boswell though, because he had a very nice trip, but Caleb Love doesn't matter. Caleb Love was awful in regulation. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. You get into this overtime, all of a sudden he's your leading scorer in the three stanzas. That's just kind of what he does. And again, he's a very unique player in that regard because the next shot's always going in. It's a little bit, obviously he's not Kobe Bryant, but it's a little bit of that quote unquote Mamba mentality that he just gets going. And when he gets going, hide everybody because it's going to be tough. And he was the one, he made that tough little runner to be able to send the game into another overtime, made a couple long threes. The free throws were good. And got to give Pelle Larsson a lot of credit. Pelle Larsson, your Pac-12 player of the week, Pelle Larsson. Those were the two guys in overtime that were making plays happen. Now Pella needs to make his free throws. I was not happy at all about Pella going 1 for 4 from the free throw line in overtime, but either way, Arizona was able to get through that. But you go into the second overtime, and then you get into a third overtime, and you start wondering, all right, what kind of how is this team going to really be built? As far as are they going to be ready for this? Are they going to be able to fight back, in the manner in which they're going to need to be able to win this game? And it looked like initially, nope, they wouldn't. And then gets into the second overtime, and you're kind of like, all right, well, Arizona probably going to lose this one. And then you get into the third overtime, and that's where Arizona just started to outclass Utah. And again, this was a tough environment. Again, it wasn't like you were playing in McHale where it was sold out or anything, but this was a tough environment. It was a nice quad one win because again, Utah is solid. Utah will probably make the NCAA tournament, and if they don't make the NCAA tournament, they're going to be right. They're kind of be that fringe team. Utah's good. Utah's solid. Tell all your friends that Utah is good and that Utah is solid. But then after that, Arizona gets into that third overtime. And like I said, that's when Arizona just kind of looked like it's like, all right, we're done playing with these guys. And Arizona was able to win the game going away. But it was a frustrating game because Arizona shouldn't have been in that spot to begin with. I'm sorry, you're up 16 and you're a top 5, top 8 team in the country. You should never give that lead up. And they gave it up very, very quickly. But again, they showed a lot of resiliency in that overtime against Utah. And I think at that point, you look at it and you're like, listen, a quad one win is a quad one win, and you'll take them. Arizona now has very, very good, potential, I think, to be able to continue to get these more quad one wins. But they played incredibly well, and not only have they played incredibly well, I think it's also fair to say that you also kind of know at this point that Arizona is going to have one of the better schedules or one of the better win-loss resumes in the country. I mean, you look at it, Utah was another one. We'll get to Colorado. That Alabama win is going to measure very, very well in the grand scheme of things. And not only is it going to measure well, I think it's going to be something that Arizona fans can really hang their hat on. Then after that, you've got, like I said, Alabama, Michigan State, Duke, obviously, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this was, like I said, this was a very, very good win for Arizona. It was frustrating how it happened, but again, when you're on the road, it's tough to win on the road in college basketball. I know that's a cliche at this point. I know that I get all of that, but the saying is very true. And not only is the saying true, it's something that I think is very close to, something that I think we probably underrate a little bit. Now, going into the Colorado game, I did not have a lot of faith that Arizona was going to be able to win that game for a variety of reasons, but as usual, they proved me wrong. But first, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. All right, now, post your job for free and And again, everybody knows somebody that's gotten a job through LinkedIn. Everybody knows somebody that's gotten a job through LinkedIn. And I think that that's something that's fair. That's very fair to say. Now with LinkedIn, I think that it's like I said, it's a spot where everybody can get a job. If you're committed, you can get the job, and not only can you get the job, I think that's also fair to say that, again, Arizona, like I said, employers have got jobs, people got jobs. Check it out. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Now let's talk a little bit about Colorado, my friends. Colorado. All right. Arizona had every reason to lose this game. Because, again, Colorado's a good team. They're an NCAA tournament team. We know that. Not only are they an NCAA tournament team, or should be an NCAA tournament team, they've got some pros on their team. You look at Cody Williams. You look at KJ Simpson. Probably guys, especially Cody Williams, He's going to play in the NBA. He's good. KJ Simpson, kind of the same way. Tristan Da Silva's a monster in college. Eddie Lampkin, same way. And the Coors Event Center, is that what it's called? Either way, that is a very difficult place to play. That is a very difficult place to play any game. It's just not easy. We all know, I mean, you can watch a game there. You know that's not an easy place to that's not an easy place to win a game. So again, Colorado is very, very good. And Arizona basically put their foot on their neck from start to finish. And that was what I think Arizona fans have been wanting to see for the longest time. A game where you go in against a team that's good, but you're better, and you just put your foot down. And it was an effort across the board. And I think what was even more impressive about it was that Arizona didn't give back, didn't give it in. After you got up 10, 12 points, you kept them at that disparity. And I think that's something as an Arizona fan, you got to be very, very happy about. I know that I was very, very happy about that. Again, I think what we've seen a lot of the time is that with Arizona, like I said, it's almost kind of like you're reading your press clippings to a certain degree, that it's like, all right, we're good. We can do whatever we want. And while Arizona is good, this also isn't 2001 Arizona, where you've got 5 of the top 25 players in the country, or, your 97, 98, where you got 2 first-team All-Americans and a future player of the year, all of that. That's not what this team is like. But again, it's a very, very good team. But Arizona was not giving in on this one. Every time Arizona jumped out to an early lead, and every time you're like, all right, Colorado's got to make a run at some point. It didn't happen. Arizona would hit them with a run, or Arizona would also, whatever the case may be, Arizona was very, very difficult to be able to stop. And that's kind of where it's at. I do think though that the big thing that we got from this was that Arizona's players that they need to start playing well are starting to play well. This was about as good as I've seen Kylan Boswell play in a long time. Boswell was the man out there. He started out the game making some shots. Now keep in mind, though, he's also had some games where he started off making some shots, and then he kind of disappeared a little bit later on in the game. And I think that's what a lot of people were worried about. But it didn't stop there. Then he was driving to the basket. He was getting that little left-handed. He had that little left-handed finish around the hoop that was absolutely fantastic. And not only did he have that, he was also able to just orchestrate the offense in a very, very impressive way. Listen, when Kylan Boswell is playing well, Arizona is a real problem. And you saw that against Colorado, because the other players just kind of fall into place there when Boswell is playing well. But he was strong, he was emphatic, and again, he was a difference maker. Like, I know I've said this a billion times. I don't need him to be Mike Bibby. I don't need him to be Jason Terry, but I need him to be an all-conference type player. And there's no reason that he can't be an all-conference type player, because he's got that ability. Listen, he's a top 15 to top 20 player coming out of high school. He's deceptively athletic. He can get to where he needs to on the court. He's very smart with the ball. He can do a lot of different things. And not only can he do a lot of different things, he can also he's also able to basically navigate the team. And that's where I think he's very, very impressive. Like I said, I was very impressed by what I saw from Kylan Boswell. And if Arizona gets a performance like that out of Kylan Boswell, this is going to be a very difficult team to win or to beat, because he can be that guy. Again, watch him, and you can tell that he's got the skills. And I think that's why people, are holding him to a higher standard. Again, it's not like he's Daniel Dillon. It's not like this is some player that just can't play basketball. Kylan Boswell can play basketball, and Kylan Boswell can play basketball at the highest level. He is just a really, really good basketball player when he is fully engaged and focused. And that's what you saw from him. And then Jaden Bradley, got to give it up to Jaden Bradley as well. This might have been Jaden Bradley's best game at the U of A. A lot of people think that Jaden Bradley is a lost cause offensively. I don't see that at all. As a matter of fact, I think that he's a player that is, when the chips are down, he's going to be able to, I think he can score. Listen, He's never going to be a great shooter. It's not like he's going to be Steph Curry or anything, but he's very clever in how he gets into the paint. Not only is he very clever in how he gets into the paint, he also is able to, he's also probably end line to end line, the fastest player on the team. And he does a fairly good job of orchestrating the offense. And I think that's something that's a little bit underrated about him. Again, it's not like John Stockton or something, but he does a fairly good job of orchestrating the offense. And not only that, he's also the dude that I think is able to, he's also the guy that I think is able to, just be that player that, just kind of settles everybody down. He's got kind of a calming demeanor about him. And then defensively, he's fantastic. Defensively, he's the best perimeter defender on the team. He makes it very difficult for players to be able to, get in the lane, be able to get after the, he's that guy. There's a little bit of Jason Terry in him. Again, I'm not saying that he's Jason Terry, obviously, but there is a little bit of Jason Terry in him. I think that he is going to be a very solid starting point guard for the U of A. And not only I think he's going to be a solid starting point guard, I think he can be an all-conference player as well. I mean, there's a reason that he was a McDonald's All-American. There's a reason that he could have gone to pretty much any school in the country. I think Arizona thought they were going to get him initially, but better late than never. A very, very nice pickup for the U of A, Jaden Bradley. And not only was Jaden Bradley a very nice pickup for the U of A, he's somebody that I think you can see this team being built around in the future. Just like I said, just all kinds of impressiveness from Bradley in that game. And that moves also us to Caleb Love. Listen, this wasn't a vintage Caleb Love game. He was certainly better than he was against Utah, but it was just funny seeing KJ Simpson continuing to jaw with Caleb Love. That's not the dude you want to get going because, again, he has no fear. You watch him, and like we've talked about a billion times, that next shot, he could be 0 of 40 from the field, and that next shot is going in. Not only is that next shot going in, he's also able to get into the paint. He's also able to make just a lot of different plays. I love it, honestly, when Caleb Love drives to the basket. I think when he is aggressive and when he gets into the paint, I think that makes everything easier for him. Because, again, this is a dude that we've seen. When he gets downhill, he can get downhill. I mean, Caleb Love does not lack anything athletically. Nobody looks at Caleb Love and they're like, man, if he was just a little bit more athletic, he'd be really good. There's none of that with Caleb Love. You know exactly the kind of player that he is. And again, sometimes I think he settles a little too often. I think that he's got the ability to be able to make the three-point shot, but not only make the three-point shot, but, get people on their back heels a little bit. I've thought, before and again, this is just an NBA comparison because he's not clearly that player, but he's got a lot of Tyrese Maxey in him, at least at the college level, and that he can just kind of get where he needs to. And there's just kind of that gunner mentality about him. But he is like I said, Arizona's very fortunate to have him. Now, another thing we're fortunate enough to have is FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. You put down $5, you get $2, and you win. You get back 200 free plays. That's simple, that easy. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Listen, the Super Bowl's over, but that doesn't mean that you stop. You've got the NBA. Not only do you have the NBA, you've also got not only do you have the NBA, you've also got college basketball. You got baseball coming up on the horizon. And even if you don't like certain sports, you know what everybody likes? They like betting on things where they like watching things where you have money on it. FanDuel.com/lockedon is there for you. It is for the people, by the people. Check it out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Michael Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about the front court. But first, got to get to Pella. If we're going to count as the front court, Pella Larson was absolutely fantastic. This might have been his best road trip of his career. First game, 27 points or 24 points, I can't remember, and he followed it up with another strong performance against Colorado. He was very deserving of the Conference Player of the Week, and not only was he very deserving of the Conference Player of the Week, I think he probably cemented himself on that All Pac-12 team, as he should. He was, like I said, he was lights out. And there was a calming influence about him, especially when a team goes zone and he's able to get the ball in the middle of the key. And then he can look around, he can ascertain who needs to be able to get the ball in what spot. That's where he is super, super effective. Okay, now with but with Pella, like I said, just keep going, because again, we know what Pella can do. Pella is a very good basketball player. My bad Pella, hashtag my bad Pella. But he just got to continue it. You can't have the game where you're like, all right, what's Pella doing out there? Why isn't he being consistent? We know what he can do. We know how he can be effective. We just need more of that, because Pella Larson is a very good basketball player. Pella Larson can do a lot of very good things on the basketball court. And then looking up front, Oumar Ballo, leader of men, Oumar Ballo. Just kind of settling into that nice little role where you're getting, 14 points, 10 rebounds. He's going to be on the all-conference team as well. You look at Arizona's roster, and there's probably 3 guys that are going to be on that first team. You're going to have Caleb Love, you're going to have Pella Larson, you're going to have Oumar Ballo, leader of men. Oumar, like I said, Oumar gets a lot of grief, but at the end of the day, there aren't many better rebounders in college basketball, and there's not many players that game in and game out are going to be able to get you 15 points and 10 rebounds. That just is what it is. I get that in the pick and roll defense, he's not good. He's got limitations. Listen, because if he didn't have limitations, he wouldn't even be in college anymore. But he's a very good basketball player. Not only is he a very good basketball player, he's somebody that I think it's fair to say, like I said, if he wants to come back, you certainly want him back, but he's going to make a lot of money overseas, whatever the case may be. But he's damn good at what he does. And then I was also very happy with Mount Crevis. Mount Crevis, listen, he's going to have some games where the game's a little too fast for him. He's going to have some games where it's a little too slow for him. A little too slow, but I get that. He's far from a flawless prospect either, but Crevis was very good, and I still believe that Crevis is going to be somebody that Arizona fans are going to need him to be impactful, because again, he is a good basketball player, and we've seen it when Crevis comes in and he is effective and he is able to make plays. It just makes things so much easier for everybody out there on the basketball court, because again, how many teams can bring in a 7'2" guy that's got skills down low? Arizona's got that with Crevis, and then with Keshad. Listen, I guess I thought he was going to be a hyper energy, 14 and 11 guy just off running the court. He's not really that, but he's good. I can't just have the games where he's got 4 points and 3 rebounds or something to that effect. I need him to be able to be better. Not only do I need him to be better, I need him to just be consistent, because again, we've seen it. It's like with other players, what they're capable of. And it's not like it's like a Caleb Love spot where if Caleb Love's not making his shot, then it's going to be a struggle for them. He's got the ability from an athleticism, from an energy perspective to be able to make that work. And again, that's why we're going to hold Keshad Johnson to a higher standard. All right, but either way, this was a massive, massive weekend for the U of A. All kinds of good stuff, and I think it's safe to say that we should be very excited about what we saw. Now, coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk about seeding and what all this means, and probably a little bit of a look ahead to ASU as well. Arizona should curb stomp ASU, but Arizona right now is, I think, squarely looking at a number 1 seed out west. You got the resume, but with Arizona, I don't really care who Arizona plays. I just care about what Arizona does, because Arizona is good enough to be able to is able to win games just by playing up to their standards. But like I said, great weekend for Arizona fans. We'll also talk a little football tomorrow as well. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. We will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Monday. You have been listening to Locked On Wildcats podcast.